And good morning, Manchester, 7:25 a.m. here at the Girard at Large radio station, WLMW 90.7 FM. I'm BJ Perry. Joining me is Andrew Preventure, and coming back with a fresh cup of coffee, running in Mark the Liberty, Register of Probate for Rockingham County. He's working, he's running, he's going to get done for the people of Rockingham County and the state. We are taking over the radio station here at the Girard at Large. We'll see if Rich wants to bring us back. Josh is putting up with us. He has not had a donut yet. Hope you guys are enjoying what we're saying, and we're going to jump right into our next person that we're bringing in, our next interview. Joining us from the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, a national-based organization talking about policy and politics relative towards tax reform. Michi, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. How are you this morning?
We are great. Thank you for being on. You had a great time. We're glad to have you on, and we're going to be tomorrow 30 days from the First in the Nation presidential primary.
Wow. There's
a lot going on. New Hampshire's the hotbed of politics. Relative towards tax reform, what are you hearing on the national stage? I mean, this is what you do. This is your wheelhouse. What are you hearing? What do you want candidates to be saying? Relative towards tax reform.
Yeah, well, when you break it down, obviously, you have Washington, D.C., and you have Congress and the president, and then you have the 2016 candidates. So, first, really quick, here in Washington, tax reform has been talked about a lot for a long time. Over the last few years, we've heard a lot, particularly about corporate tax reform. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world, effectively, in the developed world, and it's chasing jobs away. It's preventing companies from making more money, hiring people, investing in their own growth. And so what we would like to see is a lowered corporate tax rate. Even President Obama wants that. There's bipartisan agreement, but the problem is that what are we what are we going to do with the money? And that's where the disagreement comes in, where you have President Obama who wants to spend it on infrastructure, and you have the Congress, the GOP majorities, who want to really let the companies have that money back to invest it as they see fit. We've been hearing a lot of encouraging things from new Speaker Congressman Paul Ryan on tax reform, so we're hoping to see something get done. Now, when it comes to 2016, that's a different story because you have two sides, obviously. You have the Democrat primary and you have the Republican primary, and there are different things being talked about when it comes to taxes. Certainly on the Democrat side, you hear a lot from Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Senator Bernie Sanders really about raising taxes. And on the Republican side, you see different approaches to tax reform, particularly because you have so many candidates. But it's all, for the most part, we see an agreement that there needs to be reform. We need to have a simpler code. We need to put more money back into the pockets of the middle class and to small business. So that's what we're hearing, but we haven't seen anyone rally around a specific plan yet. We haven't seen the voters rally around. And that's why New Hampshire is important, because I think you'll see a little bit of a clearing of the field after the primary 30 days from now. So it's going to be really exciting to watch and really important for voters in the country overall.
As we start to peel back the layers of that onion of why, obviously, this issue is so important and so many people talk about it a lot, but, why is it that you think this hasn't, really resonated fully with a candidate? Why hasn't a candidate just absolutely championed this yet? And what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, I think a lot of times when you have a presidential election, particularly a primary, is that you go with the issue of the day. You go with the issue that's really dominating the news, an issue that really people are talking about. And let's be honest here, while it's an important issue and it's critical to the economy overall, it's not a sexy issue. It's not something that anybody really wants to talk about per se to get ratings or to put out a good ad or, to get something to have another candidate take a bite at the apple to where you're going to have a little bit of some infighting or really some crossfighting between both sides of the aisle in the presidential primary. So that's really the problem, and it seems, and I hate to say this, but for a lot of candidates, while I don't doubt anyone's sincerity when they talk about this issue, sometimes it seems like we're going to check that box. We're going to say, here's our plan, here's paper on it, take a look, let us know what you think, but we don't really hear as much. I mean, we just had a debate in November when we had a GOP debate on CNBC that was supposed to be focused on the economy, it barely was. Now, a little bit later, we had a Fox Business debate, and that really did focus on the economy, and it really did talk about tax reform. So a lot of times, it's just what are we talking about at that moment? And we've got a couple of debates coming up before the New Hampshire primary, so it'll be interesting to see if candidates are able to hone in on tax reform and really not just say, hey, I have a plan, but really talk about their plan and how they plan to actually make that reform a reality.
So that's a lead-in that I have. So when you're talking to candidates and when you're hearing them speak, how do you tell the difference between a candidate that has a genuine passion for this issue versus someone that's just paying lip service?
That's actually a great question. It's very tough because I'm not a psychologist. I don't play one on TV or radio. But when you hear what candidates are saying, I think the most important thing to take away is how serious are their proposals. I think that's how you can gauge how serious a candidate is. Because if they're throwing pie in the sky to you and they're just saying, we're just going to, do this and we're going to, when they say things that it's not necessarily that it's not believable, but it's about being achievable. And that's really how you can tell the seriousness of a candidate, because if they really believe in their plan, if they really believe that voters should get behind them and what they're saying on tax reform or whatever other issue it may be, they also have to have a plan for how they're going to do it. It's not enough to say, here's what I want to do on issue X, tax reform. You have to be able to show the voters and to really show those that you're going to be working with, whether you're talking to members of Congress or whether you're talking to other elected officials, national and statewide, this is how we're going to do it. So the seriousness of a candidate really, I think, is best shown through how they plan to make their plans a reality, how they're going to implement them.
And do you think, is there the appetite for legitimate reform? Do you think that, obviously someone's going to win this race and they're going to come in with what they will call a mandate of sorts, and they will have laid out some plan? Do you think there's the appetite now, whether it's with the general public wanting this or with elected officials to, actually have some real common sense reform done?
I think that, it's been 30 years now since the last time we had actual meaningful reform of the tax code with the Tax Reform Act in 1986. We've heard a lot of talk for the last several years about really doing something about tax reform, but I think, and I'm always optimistic about this and other issues, that when you have leaders who are willing to make tough choices, come to the table and work, that we can get it done. And I think you have in Speaker Paul Ryan someone who is very serious on this issue, has a great vision and an idea for how he get there and get to reform. If the Senate can play ball and come to the table, we don't know how the Senate's going to look in 2016, and we don't know how the White House is going to look in 2016. But I think it's fairly certain that the House will have the same speaker. So we have some components there. So now we need a candidate who has a plan, and we need a Senate who's ready to sit at the table. And I think if we can get there, I'm very optimistic that we can have tax reform. I would like to have tax reform this year, to be honest with you, because President Obama has said that he wants to do something. Speaker Ryan has said that he wants to do something, and we have a Senate that could come to the table. But obviously, I think you guys well know, 30 days out from your own primary, this is always a tough year to actually get things done in Washington during a presidential election. So I'm optimistic that we can get something done, but the timing of it is really the critical question.
One of the questions I have is that when you have presidential candidates, they usually come from one of two places, either three: business, the legislature, or governors. Governors have budgets at the state level, but obviously they're not dealing with the tax reform that you're looking at. Senators understand what you're saying, but may not necessarily be acting. Do you see the difference between those type of candidates? When you speak with them, do you see their experience come out in their answers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you see that not just on tax reform, but you can see that on a whole host of issues, not just issues that TPA works on too, but issues that you guys focus on your radio show, issues that voters talk about at the kitchen table back in, New Hampshire somewhere. So you can always really see the delineation between the background and the experience the candidates have when they're talking about the issues, when they're talking about what they want to do on the issues, and when they talk about how they're going to get there, when they're going to make, their plans and happen. So I think that always comes out. And I think that's good, though. I think it's a healthy debate to have for the country, for the voters, for the primary. And I think it's important that when candidates are running for the most difficult job in the world, the most powerful job in the world, that they really do make themselves stand out, and they really do show what they bring to the table and how they're going to make good on the promises and pledges that they're making to voters.
So with the New Hampshire presidential primary just right around the corner, we have a few more debates coming up from what you're hearing down in Washington, the people that you're talking to with Washington, the people that you're talking to around the country. Do you think, and will your organization continue to make sure that tax reform is on the debate stage and being brought up with these upcoming debates and in the final 30 days of the First Nation primary?
Absolutely, and not just New Hampshire. I mean, beyond New Hampshire. Obviously, New Hampshire is important to you guys. It's important to the primary. It's important to the voters, and it's important to the process. But we have to keep the conversation going, because as long as tax reform is being talked about, candidates are going to have to answer on it, and we're going to have to see something. And Congress can keep the pressure up too. There's a lot of ways that Congress can really take some first steps and really get the ball moving on a process to where we can see tax reform. So I think it's important not just to keep up the pressure through the debates, through the candidates, through a host of ways that groups like TPA and others and voters at the grassroots level and those in the media such as yourself, there's all ways that we can really keep the ball focused on very important issues that are critical to voters and critical to the country, including tax reform. And it goes not just with New Hampshire and the primary, but beyond these debates, beyond New Hampshire, because we have to keep that message going if we want to see some serious action taken on this issue in the next year or so.
Excellent. Michi, we are coming up against a hard break. People to learn more about the Taxpayer Protection Alliance and all the great things you're doing as the communications and policy manager with the organization, how can people learn more?
Yeah, feel free to go to our website. We're at www.protectingtaxpayers.org, and you can follow us on Twitter at ProtectTaxpayers with 1 T.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate all you're doing, looking out for the taxpayers every single day. We here in the First Nation primary state and our Live Free or Die state are always fighting the taxes, the hard stuff that we're doing, and making sure that we keep it as Mel Thompson said, low taxes are the result of low spending, and we love having our low taxes here in New Hampshire. Michi, thanks for being on. Great for all the things that you're doing, and we are going to kick it back over to Josh because we are keeping going here at the Girard at Large radio station, WLMW 90.7 FM.